I've just seen some very distressing news. Mauricio Pochettino is potentially going to stay at Chelsea. Never before has a man been so worthy of the sack. Never before has such an average manager been dealt with in such a generous way. Never before in the history of the game has a manager so clearly lacking in talent kept his position at a club of our stature for so long. Pochettino remaining in office is just another example of Chelsea Football Club under Clear Lake normalising mediocrity. That is what they are doing in terms of our signings, in terms of our aspiration, in terms of the way that we feel about the club, in terms of the managerial appointment. They are normalising mediocrity. And you know what? We live in a world of spin and PR, and Chelsea Football Club are excellent at that. And I believe that they are setting us up for the news that Mauricio Pochettino is going to see us into next season. That is why it has already been briefed that there is a world in which he can stay. Like, read it. It's out there. It has been put out there. And they are setting us up for the news that he's going to stay. It simply says that if Mauricio Pochettino somehow gets Chelsea into the Europa League, normalising mediocrity. If Chelsea become a team in the Europa League, Mauricio Pochettino will keep his job. So all it's going to take for Mauricio Pochettino to keep a job he is so unsuitable for is qualification for the Europa League. Now, what's going on? Europa League qualification for Chelsea Football Club is sackable. Carlo Ancelotti won the double and got sacked in the tunnel at Goodison Park. Roberto Di Matteo was sacked in the November of 2012 off the back of us winning the European Cup in the May of 2012. A month before Roberto Di Matteo was sacked, we beat Tottenham 4-2, Gary Cahill scored. We were top of the Premier League. We finished with a very respectable tally in the Champions League. Okay, we got beaten by Juventus and we went into the Europa League. But we had a really respectable tally. They were the standards. I didn't agree with the sacking, but they were the standards of the club. Mourinho was sacked with the team in the Champions League off the back of winning back-to-back league titles. Frank Lampard was sacked, having taken a team off the back of a transfer ban, off the back of losing our best player, Eden Hazard, into the FA Cup final, into the Champions League spaces, and into the last 16 of the European Cup. It was the youth team. It was Tammy Abraham. It was Victor Mori. It was Reece James. It was Mason Mount. We had no transfers, and he was sacked off the back of that. And suddenly, we have redefined what success means. Qualifying for the Europa League for Chelsea Football Club isn't a reason to keep your job. And this is exactly what I said before. This is normalising mediocrity. This is somehow trying to paint the picture that doing badly and failing is somehow a success. It is redefining the word success. And I tell you what, I saw a line that one of the reasons that they're thinking about keeping him is because the players will be upset if he leaves. The players will be upset if Mauricio Pochettino leaves. Good! Good! So they should be. Good! They should be upset. They should be upset anyway. They should be upset because of their disgraceful performances. They should be upset because they are being managed by somebody so clearly average and out of his depth on the touchline of Stamford Bridge. They should be upset because they've guided us to one of the worst seasons in our history. Certainly one of the most embarrassing. And do you know why they'll be upset? Because he's nice to them. He's never strict. And listen to how ridiculous this is. Off the back of that shambles that happened at the Emirates. Off the back of that historic defeat. That is our worst London derby defeat since 1986. Since Queen's Park Rangers put 6 past us in 1986. That is our worst London derby defeat. Guess what happened off the back of that? Pochettino gave them all a day off. A day off to let the dust settle. It's pathetic. But naturally, lazy footballers like days off, and therefore they will always like somebody that gives them a day off. We have at least a dozen players at this club who have no right to be there. We have the most dislikable squad that we have ever assembled in the history of the club. And guess what? They don't care. So they get trounced 5-0 by Arsenal. Of course they want a day off. A day off for these players is fantastic. They can whack on their Moncler coat and their Gucci little man bag and swan about the West End giving it the big one. Do you know what they should have been doing? They should have been in Hyde Park running rings around that Serpentine. Lap after lap after lap of the Serpentine. Because they did no running the day before. How can you possibly give someone a day off the back of that atrocious, unforgivable performance? We have suffered 2 heartbreaking results in the space of 4 days. Losing the FA Cup semi-final to Manchester City will obviously sting, and it is a game, annoyingly, that I believe that we could have won with better in-game management. But even if we're generous to Pochettino and leave that one there, I don't think we should do that. I think Manchester City were there for the taking. I think they were affected by the 120 minutes that they played against Real Madrid, and I think that the emotional torment of being launched out of the European Cup really got to them. When we played Manchester City at Wembley. There was no better opportunity to play them. We didn't have a game midweek. They did. They played 120 minutes. They got launched out of Europe. We were fresh. We could have won that game. But let's be generous to Pochettino. Not that he deserves it, but let's be generous to Pochettino and park that one. That humiliation at the Emirates. One of the worst performances that we have ever put in at the Emirates. One of the worst performances that I can remember from a Chelsea team in my entire life. It's a game that the Arsenal fans will be singing about for years to come. Thank God we've got Wenger's 1000th game to come back with. But instead of that atrocious result, casting fresh doubt over Pochettino, what it's actually done is allow a little bit of spin to materialise, and somehow it's now framed, if Chelsea can make it into the Europa League, he can keep his job. And weirdly, there is a world where, despite this forgettable season, we could actually make it into the Europa League spots. We're 6 points behind Manchester United with a game in hand. Now, don't get me wrong, I feel like we can get beaten by anybody. There is absolutely no guarantee that Chelsea will win any game between now and the end of the season, certainly not with Pochettino in charge. However, if you look on paper, Chelsea do have some very winnable fixtures. So there is a world where it is a complete reality that Chelsea could limp into the Europa League spots. And I think our board have realised this. They have deduced that there is a chance that Chelsea will get there by hook or by crook and end up playing European football if they want to keep him for a myriad of reasons. Primarily because I don't think that they can afford to sack him. Primarily because I don't think they can afford to replace him. And primarily because it's their error. They need him to come good because it does not paint them in a positive colour at all. So I think that they are trying to creatively come up with a way that they can justify keeping him. And I think they found it. Because when you look at Chelsea's fixtures, there are points available. You know, we're playing sides where I believe we can at least dream of a win. We're playing West Ham United. We're playing Nottingham Forest. We're playing Bournemouth. We're playing Brighton. I think there are certain games where we will think that we can get the requisite points to qualify for the Europa League. I think another reason why they may want to keep him is partly because of the finances of the situation, but also because, realistically, we aren't a prospect anymore. I saw somebody talking about Hansi Flick being available, as if Hansi Flick wants to come to Chelsea. There's literally nothing in it for him to come and manage Chelsea. You know, there's talk of De Zerbi, but realistically, we can't afford that. You know, I mean, surely Amorim would rather come to Chelsea than West Ham United, but I'm not so sure anymore. And actually, it's almost irrelevant what Chelsea want, because some of the biggest clubs in Europe, all of whom will be playing Champions League football, all of whom have squads that a manager would love the idea of working with, rather than our atrocious crop of players. So many clubs, so many big clubs are looking for new managers. Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Liverpool, AC Milan. There's probably going to be some movement at Manchester United. So realistically, who really now wants a Chelsea job? It's the old Sir Alex Ferguson quote, don't pick your club, pick your owners. And if you were picking your owners, Chelsea are bottom of your list. So there we have it. The more that we talk about this, the more I realise that Mauricio Pochettino is going to be the Chelsea manager next season, which is filling me with dread. He doesn't deserve it. Football should be a meritocracy. You should earn the right to manage one of the most prestigious clubs in world football, one of the most exciting names in world football. It's an honour to be the manager of Chelsea. And Mauricio Pochettino most certainly doesn't deserve it, but he doesn't even appreciate it. We know that he doesn't love Chelsea. The way that he talks about Tottenham consistently is sackable in itself. The man should be gone. He should have been sacked at half-time. He should have been sacked at half-time of that Arsenal game. He should have been launched out of the dressing room at half-time, and he should have been on that train. You know, by the away end at Arsenal, you cross over the bridge, there's that weird little station, Drayton Park or whatever it is. Chuck him on a train there, let him go over to Old Street and find his own way from there. That's what should have happened. He should have been launched out of the dressing room at half-time against Arsenal. The fact that we are now being briefed to suggest that he is going to be Chelsea manager next season is a disgrace. Right, there we have it. There are my thoughts on the matter. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do me a favour. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Really am interested to hear your thoughts on the matter. Am I being too harsh on Pochettino? Or do you think it is correct that he should be given the tin tack today? As always, I really do appreciate your feedback. Please give this video a like if you've enjoyed it. Also, if you are new around here, please click subscribe. It would be an honour to welcome you into this community. We're limping towards 300,000 subs. It'd be great to have you here. Thank you so much.